And you don't look any older.
Thank you. Story, bro. Thank you. I have a little bit less hair right there, but other than that. And these are our media seniors. We've got a handful that are in the college application process right now for some of the broadcast journalism schools around the country. And we've got a few guys in here that are really into radio and want to, despite my best efforts to talk them out of it, go into radio. So
they have the perfect face for it.
So if you could just kind of get started by just telling them a little bit about, I guess, what you do at Cox Media, and then the path to that, some of the places you've been.
Will do.
And then these guys have lots of questions.
That's great. Love to hear it. It's good to see all you guys. Let me just say this. I cannot believe I'm going to say this right now. But I was sitting right where you are in high school media class 35 years ago. I cannot believe that we were taking quizzes on vocabulary and getting fined every time we said a cuss word because we weren't allowed to swear in school, and they were trying to raise money for our album collection because we had to buy our own music. So every time somebody said a quarter word, you throw it in, and if we needed more money, they start throwing the F-bomb. And there's a dollar, there's a dollar. Okay, we got enough for the new Van Halen album. So,
we should.
So yeah, you really should. Yeah, but you have to be prepared with money, because you couldn't write IOUs. I owe you, if you didn't have it, you got in trouble. So I'm just kidding. But anyway, so thanks for coming. I just got a new job. I was a news anchor up until about a week ago. And I did all of the newscasts all throughout the day for people when they were off for vacations or whatever. And I was just named news director about a week ago. So now I get to work a normal shift and be responsible for the department, and it's very exciting. I started out liking news when I was a kid, but I didn't like the exploitativeness of it. I didn't like them shoving a camera in your face and saying, "Hey, your daughter just died. How do you feel?" It just seemed wrong back in the late 70s, early 80s. But that's the way our news has gone now. And ever since 9/11, which was 11 years ago or so, news has been so much a part of radio. And cable news has really changed the way we look at the world. I was really glad to be able to get into it. So one of the things I tell people is how many of you, first of all, are radio people, want to be radio itself? Okay. And then what else do we have? We have sportscasters, anybody? Yeah? Okay, TV producers, production people, and who's left? Writers. Writers, there you go. I would tell you that the industry is changing drastically, as you guys have probably heard. You guys hearing doom and gloom stories about radio and TV and newspaper, or are you hearing like, it's great? Doom and gloom?
More like one person doing everything now.
Yeah. I will tell you that everything has changed so much in the last 20 years. But really, it's probably easier to get into the business now than it was. And the reason is because there are more entry-level positions than there were positions where you had to be at a certain level already with experience. So you're going to be able to get a job if you do a couple of things. If you can apply for a job without drooling on the desk of the person you're applying with. If you show up in clean clothes. If you're able to put more than 2 sentences together. And if you show a real interest in doing the job, not, hey, you're lucky to have me come and sit in your desk, but I really want to work for you, and here's what I can do for you. That's what an employer wants. That's what you want when you want to meet a boyfriend or a girlfriend. It's not, what can I do for you? It's what can you do for me? And so that's the whole point, is that Scott is probably trying to teach you how to present yourself in such a way that when you walk away from that desk, they say, God, I have to have that person, because that person's going to help us achieve our company goals. They don't care about whether or not you need to pay rent, or if you have 10 kids at home, or whatever. Now, they may care on a personal level, but in reality, the reason that we're there is to serve the company, and so you're going to serve us. If you start seeing yourself as a servant, you will be much better off. You're a servant to your parents now, you're a servant to your teachers, you're going to be a servant to your employer. And you're going to be a servant to somebody your whole life. So once you hit 18, it's not like you're not going to have to be, nobody can tell you what to do anymore, because everyone will tell you what to do the rest of your life. But there is a lot more freedom when you turn 18. And I will just tell you, don't let it go to your head and screw up your life, but that's another story.
Anthony, Mr. 18 today.
So what I do at Cox is direct the news department. Now, a lot of young people don't care about news. Why do you think that is?
A lot of it tends to be really negative.
Okay. Negative news. What else? Why do you guys just not care about watching or reading the news? Give me your name too, if you would.
A lot of people don't really think it affects them, and they think, oh, it's somebody else, and they just don't really care about it unless it really affects them.
Okay, and what's your name?
Tim.
Tim, okay. What else? What are the reasons why you just don't care about the news? We need a Phil Donahue to walk around with him.
I'm Austin, and it's boring.
It's boring. Okay.
I'm Brandy, and I don't really have the time.
Don't have the time. Okay.
I'm Kyle, and there's like no positive stories ever.
Positives. Okay. So I'm kind of hearing that it's boring and there's no positive. It's negative. Those are true statements. And here's why. The news is negative because it's always the bad stuff that happens that you have to report, typically. There's fluff pieces, there's weird news, there's, oh my gosh, did you see that kitty? That kitty fell off of the top of the building and it survived. I mean, that kind of stuff, but nobody wants to watch that in any sort of numbers. What people want to know is, especially when you're an adult, they want to know, how does the world affect my family and me? And the older you get, the more you can put the world in perspective. I remember watching the news and it didn't make sense to me. I didn't understand it because I had no perspective. When they talked about this senator or this issue or this law, I didn't even know what they were talking about, so I had no concern for it. But when you get older and all of this stuff starts coming into your brain, when you get into your 30s, you go, okay, I remember. You start getting perspective. You start understanding how things work together so that by the time you're in your 30s, you start liking news and consuming news. A lot of teenagers right now, I think, are getting news on their phones and they're understanding things. You might have a little bit faster learning curve, if you will. But for the most part, I think news comes to people after they get perspective in the world and they understand it. We provide local news, weather and traffic so that we can get where we need to go in the morning. And one of our biggest things is the weather. We want to make sure that people understand when severe weather is coming, and so we have our meteorologists. We have 4 meteorologists now, which is unheard of in Dayton television. So that's the main purpose. And a radio station has to serve the public. You know, our license comes from the Federal Communications Commission. You guys know how that works?
Yeah.
Who can explain that? Who can explain that in just layman's terms? Who wants to tackle that? Anybody? Anybody? Bueller.
So Alec Lynchen.
What?
How do you think it works? You don't have to be right. Just how do you think it works?
Okay, yeah. Basically, they regulate what goes on the radio, the internet, the television, so as it's not more mortifying and scarring to young children and or has curse words. Okay, I'm done.
The FCC regulate what's get broadcasted over open wave channels that could be seen in anybody's house. So things like radio and basic cable that you don't have to pay extra for.
Good. And so the idea is that they give a license to a group who promises to use that license for good and not evil, basically. And so if you have to prove it's 7 years, right? Every 7 years you have to prove to the FCC, here's what we've been doing. You should let us have this license again for another 7 years. We promise that we're not only making gazillions of dollars, but we're serving the public interest. So every 7 years, if a group says, you know what, I want that channel, I want that frequency, they can challenge your license. They can say, we don't want you to have that broadcast license anymore because here's why. You did this, 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 and this, and you have to prove that they weren't good stewards of that Federal Communications Commission license. So we have to prove every 7 years that we're serving the public interest. Well, what we do serves the public interest just in being as a news station. Music stations typically have to prove that they're doing it by running public service announcements and doing the Walk for Women's Wellness and the cancer walks, and that kind of fulfills those requirements, and they have to run public affairs shows on the weekends. But for the most part, you have to use the license that the government gives you to serve the people that you're broadcasting to. So that's why a lot of times you see the lame shows that you see on television with interview programs and things that you don't care about. That's supposed to be serving the public interest. Hopefully they're doing it in an interesting way. So that's what we do. We do news, we serve the public interest, and we try to make sure that people in town know if they need information about Dayton, they turn to our station. The programming that we have, does anybody know what programs we run on WHIO AM and FM? Other than our two radio guys right now? Anybody else know who our talk show hosts are? Good. It's, do you guys want to say, or do you even know?
Jason Michaels.
Yeah, who are the national people? Neil Bortz.
Neil Bortz and Limbaugh.
Yeah.
Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
And Sean Hannity.
Is that one of you guys?
Kim Commando's on the weekends, yes. So we have a very conservative talk show base. And when I started there, I'm not a conservative person. And so when I started there, I was afraid of working with a bunch of people that, were going to be politically different from me. What I found out is that we have all types of people that work in the radio station, and everyone keeps their political beliefs and their personal beliefs to themselves, and everyone works in the news department to be fair and balanced and not skew the news one way or another. But the programs themselves are very conservative. So there is a separation there. We work really hard to just tell the news. So let's talk about telling stories, because this is what will help you in your broadcasting career. You can say something 100 different ways and make it sound different and mean something different just by where you put the emphasis on the words. So you can say, a woman says she was raped last night on Main Street. Or you can say, a woman says she was raped on Main Street. Or you could say, a woman says she was raped on Main Street. And now you're getting a different feel. So you can skew the news by just hitting the word says. She says she was raped. So now you're thinking, well, maybe she wasn't. Maybe she's lying. Whatever. And that's just, and the words don't really mean anything different. So we have to think about not only what words we say, but how we emphasize them. You can say, I love you about 20 different ways, and it means something different. Think of those 3 little words. You can say, I love you, or I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you.
Chill out, okay? I love you too.
You see what I'm saying? 3 words, they all mean the same thing, but where you put the emphasis is where the meaning comes from. One of the hardest things about broadcasting is learning how to read copy out loud that says what the meaning is on the paper. Learning where to put the emphasis on the words. So when you're learning, do you guys mark up, Scott, do you guys mark up your copy with emphasis yet? Do you guys do that when you're underlining and bolding and anything like that?
We get a designed for college radio stations, a news packet that does come with some of that.
Okay.
These guys haven't done much of it on their own yet.
That would be a really good thing to do on your own. If you want to be a broadcaster that actually reads copy. And I was talking to Austin and Kyle about this the other day. Reading something and understanding what it says is a learned skill. It's really hard to do. How many of you read something immediately and know exactly what it said? How many of you have to really read it and go, God, what is this saying? And really try hard to understand it? Most people. That's true for most of us. If you can get past that, you will be much farther along, not only in broadcasting, but in any job that you have. Comprehension doesn't come easy. And what I told these guys the other day was read the sentence and then sit back and replay it in your head. What did you just read and what does it mean? If you read any law books or any law stories or whatever, it's so boring and densely packed, and every word has just enormous meaning. And that's what takes lawyers so long to get through stuff, because it's not just reading the words, it's understanding the depth of this sentence. You know, this paragraph means so much. So if you're working on comprehension, you have to look at it and say, okay, what does this mean? And get it in your head, summarize it in your head in different words than what you've just read. So you're reading a news story and it says, for example, 2 people were killed last night, or no, a Springboro High School student was found dead on the side of the road. His car crashed around a tree. He was found by a police officer. Cops are investigating. You know, you could just read that, and then you read it out loud, and you don't even really comprehend it. What would serve you well is to step back and then say, okay, what just happened there? And summarize it in your head. Okay, well, a kid was found wrapped around a tree by a police officer on a routine patrol, and they don't know how he died. Well, that's the second version of the story. That's what you start writing. You start taking what you just read, rewording it in your head, and then writing it out. So what we do is we'll take a story and make 3 versions of it so that we can rotate it. So we run it at 5, 5:30, and 6. Then we take the first one again, 6, 6:30, and 7, so whatever. So if you want to start writing copy with what did that just say, summarize it in your brain, and then rewrite it. And then make sure that you have all of the points there. So that's going to serve you not only in news, that's going to serve you in sports, that's going to serve you in writing papers, writing news articles, writing copy, writing commercials. Anything that you write is going to be done in the same way. I could go on for hours. I'm sure you guys could probably figure that out. I am very passionate about radio. I think if you guys don't know what college you're going to go to or what you're going to study, take English. I don't care if you're terrible at it. Kids today are used to texting, misspellings, incomplete sentences, no punctuation, and a lot of lingo. I am scared to see what things are going to look like in 10 years when all of you get to be close to 30 years old and 3/4 of you aren't going to know how to string 2 sentences together. So no matter what, you're still going to have to know how to write a subject and a verb and proper punctuation, or you're not going to get journalism jobs, you're not going to get copywriting jobs, and English will serve you no matter what you do in your life. Because I'm telling you, I get kids now that come in and they can't, I mean, their resume looks like a text, let alone any work they would do for us. So concentrate on learning the basics of English, be able to write well, and practice speaking. If you're going to be a broadcaster, read out loud all the time. I would sit on the pot and read. I would be in the shower reading the Suave bottle. Suave makes your hair, because I wanted to do commercials, soft and shiny with all of the, and I'd say it over and over, because I didn't have any, commercial copy in the shower. I just had the bottle. So just practice whenever you can, reading out loud and putting the emphasis where it goes. Figure out what is the point of the sentence. Is it the kid was wrapped around a tree, or the kid was wrapped around a tree, or the kid was wrapped around it, or the car was wrapped around a tree? Figure out what is the point and then underline that and hit that word hard, whatever sentence you're reading, and that's where the meaning starts coming out in copy. So let's go over some of your questions, and then maybe that'll spark some cool discussions here. Who wants to go first? Who's the shyest one in the group? Dude, go for it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
He's a liar?
Yeah.
Liar.
Nice.
He's a liar. He's a lion.
Oh, a lion, okay.
I've been called quiet. All right, well, my name is Logan, just so everyone knows. My biggest question for you is, what's the biggest topic for your news topic radio?
Politics right now. Did anybody see we had a kind of a big election yesterday? Did anybody notice?
Wait, that was last night?
What's an election?
I thought that was
Politics. 15 years ago, nobody even cared about politics. But because the internet came out and because the cable news stations had to have something to talk about all day long, they started talking about politics. They started teaching a whole generation of people about things that no one ever cared about. And the problem is right now is that people are getting a little bit of information. They're getting talking points from their favorite station, whether it's Democrat or Republican, and then they just spew those back without even understanding what they're talking about. When people are saying, Obama's a communist. Well, what does that mean? I don't know, but he's a communist. So a little bit of information is a long way, and it goes a long way. But politics is probably the number one thing. What else?
Why radio?
For me, or in general?
For you, why did you choose radio?
I wanted to be a singer and an actress and a dancer, and I wanted to be the pretty girl on stage. And when I was in high school, I got the parts of the grandma and the dog on stage. And I thought, how can I be the leading lady and not, the dead victim on the ground? I wanted to be that. So the radio gave me the opportunity to be the leading lady. We had a high school radio station. I went to Stebbins, and we had a high school radio station. It was actually kind of good back in the day. And although it's beautiful now, I haven't even been in there yet. But we had a station just like you guys did, and I had a shift, and I learned news. My teacher did the funniest thing in the world. Does anybody just like rip and read copy? Just rip it and not even pre-read it and then just read it on the air? Well, this one kid, his name was Scott, and he did it all the time, and he'd stumble through his copy all the time. And the teacher said, stop ripping and reading. You've got to read it out loud. You got to know what it says. You've got to practice before you do it, or you won't sound sure of yourself. Well, he wouldn't do it. So she wrote a news story for him for his news at 10 o'clock, and he didn't bother to read it before, so he's on the air. There was an accident downtown on 75. A large truck carrying a load of eggs to South Carolina crashed with a truck carrying ham set for West Milton. The accident happened just before noon under the hot sun. The loads merged. Suddenly there was thousands of breakfasts on the thing when everyone stopped and was eating off the highway. And she just made this story up that just made him, and he's reading this on the air and he's like, okay, I get it. I should have pre-read my copy. And she just completely dissed him. So pre-read your copy. It makes you sound authoritative. It makes you know what you're doing. But radio was exciting and interesting for me. There's not been a day that I don't love to go to work. I hope that you guys find something in your life that makes you that happy. I was very lucky. My father worked at NCR making cash registers, his father and his father back into the turn of the century. And the only advice my mother gave me was don't work in a factory. She didn't help me go to college. She didn't help me write applications. She didn't give me any money. The only advice was don't work in a factory. I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I had the vocational radio program. I loved it, and I've loved it every day. I love it when I have to get up at 1 in the morning and go to work and get up and work at 3. I have to do that tomorrow morning, as a matter of fact. I'll be up at 1:30 in the morning or midnight, 2 in the morning, whatever. It lights me up. So find what lights you up. What would you do whether or not someone was paying you for it? And that's where you need to be. And the money will come. Radio is not, you don't make a whole lot of money. That's why I'm wearing Goodwill jeans, because you don't make a whole lot of money. But the bottom line is it makes me happy. When I go home at night, I'm smiling and I'm eating ramen noodles. And you and I are kind of like the same way. Okay, that's why radio. Who else?
My name's Anthony. Sorry, Allie. And have you ever worked outside of Ohio?
I did. I worked in Indianapolis for 5 years, which is the 40th TV market, or the 22nd TV market and the 40th radio market, and that was fun. But you know what? It's not any better. You go to New York City, you hear the same kind of DJs that you see in New York and in Chicago and in LA and in whatever. Everybody's kind of the same level. It's just they get paid a whole lot more money. When you're working at a station that's billing $15-20 million a year, you might be making $50,000 doing the morning show here, and you might be making $500,000 in DC. So, no doubt.
You mentioned that radio is not the biggest of incomes. Is that the only thing you work in is radio, or do you have like side jobs, like making commercials or something?
I've had my own little DJ business, did weddings and stuff like that. I also do voice work on the side, which can make you a lot of money, but it's very competitive. While it's very competitive, you can also, there's a lot more work because you know what point of purchase displays are? When you walk up to something and it's talking to you in the store? Yeah. Like you're at Kroger or Walmart now. And there's, you know, I walk up to the frozen fish aisle and there's a woman's voice coming out of this monitor saying, you know, these fish sticks are better than anybody else's. Well, I'm like, you know, I could have had that job. So there's a lot of voice work jobs, but there's a lot of other areas. You can be a freelance writer, you can be voice work, commercials, you can join unions, get jobs like that. So yeah, just whatever your little heart desires, I guess. What else?
How important is networking compared to like 20, 30 years ago?
I think networking is going to be critical no matter what year it is, whether you're in Luke Skywalker years and a couple hundred years or now. It's, you know, they say it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that doesn't mean that you're going to get a job if you're not talented. It just means those people give you connections to get into positions. Let me tell you about my job now real quick. I was working at, I did morning shows for Z93 and 107.7, and I left and did some other things, and then I was working at this oldies radio station in Beaver Creek, and this kid came up to me and he goes, I don't know if you know this or not, Ken. This kid comes up to me and goes, hi, you're Sandy Collins, are you? And I'm at a car show, right? And it's hot and I'm sweaty and I don't know this. And I said, yeah. And he says, you work at such and such. And I said, yeah. And he goes, and before that you worked at such and such. And I go, yeah, that's right. And he goes, and before that you did this, and then you did this. And he starts reading my resume off, and I'm thinking, who the hell is this stalker kid, you know? Well, my name is Nick, and I love radio, and I work in Springfield, and he's this total geekazoid. And I'm thinking, oh, that's great. So now he and I connect because he loves radio, and he loves everything about me. So I love everything about him. Nick, tell me all about you. So we're talking for a half an hour, and I'm giving him advice, and we're chatting things up, whatever. It was really nice to meet you. So this is like 92. Were any of you born in 92? When were you guys born? God. Time flies, baby. So all of a sudden, like 10 years later, I get a phone call. Hey, you probably don't remember me, but I'm Nick Roberts, and I'm running the Cox Media Group stations now, and you talked to me 15 years ago, and you were so nice to me, and I followed your career all these years, and I want to work with you someday. And I'm like, that's so cool. Sweet. So Nick just hired me last year, groomed me for a year and a half into management, and just hired me as the news director now for the radio stations. If I had been rude to this kid, I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you guys boring you to tears. Because networking is crucial. It's not that I wasn't able to do the job, but I had the connection with Nick to get where I'm at. So networking, getting to know yourself, glad hand everybody you did. And I'll tell you about the job in Indianapolis. You know how I got it? I was in the market, I didn't have a job yet, I heard the radio station I wanted to work at, and I went to a remote where the girl was broadcasting live from a steakhouse. And I said, hey, I'm Sandy, I'm in the market, I want to work at your station. So then I start texting her and calling her every 3 or 4 weeks. I didn't do it a lot, I didn't want to freak her out and have her go, stalker! And then a job opening came in, and I was like, hey, Vicky, put in a good word for me. Tell them I'm a real person and I'm not a wacko or whatever. And I just started networking and I got a job there. So find people that work where you want to work and be friends with them. And it's not a fake friendship. It's just, dude, help me get where you're at. What do I need to do? Your question should always be asking questions. What do I need to do? What do I need to learn? How hard do I have to work? How high do I have to jump? I want this. And if you don't want something, by the time you're in your early 20s, go see a therapist, because there's probably something wrong with you. You have to be able to find something that you love. And I'm kind of kidding about the therapist, but find something that you love and do it. Whether it's music, whether it's, you know, writing, producing, if you're in a band, do it. Have fun. Just be responsible. So, what else? Bring it on. Whoa.
I got it. I'm smooth. Okay, I am Brandy, like I said before.
Hi, Brandy, I said.
Hi. And We got the chance to stalk you a little bit on the internet, so we knew something about you, so we could write questions. Would you recommend Wright State to other people if they were going into that, or are there other colleges that you would put ahead of that?
I loved Wright State. Wright State did not have a radio and TV program at the time. They had a telecommunications section, they had a communications degree, which was organizational, interpersonal, media. It was all everything, but it wasn't a radio and TV degree. What I found was that depending on what you want to do, you either need a radio TV degree or not. If you want to be talent, if you want to be on the air, if you want to be the star, you don't necessarily have to have a degree. You have to have talent. If you don't have any talent, you might as well go home or work on it. But if you want to be a technical person, if you want to be behind the camera, if you want to be a producer, whatever, it's probably a good idea to go to a program that has intense learning about the technology. You guys are so lucky here to see this set up and to see all of the editing equipment and all of the passion for this and the radio station. You guys have a really good start. Many of you might be able to just leave here and go start working somewhere. In my field, they don't really ask if you have a degree. But I will tell you this, a degree absolutely set me above my peers because I was able to write more than 2 sentences together. I knew how to do projects and finish them because that's what college teaches you other than having fun and making new contacts. It teaches you how to complete things. And in business, whatever you do, whether you, no matter what your job is, you have to be able to complete a task. And that's what college preps you to do, deadlines, and get it done now, and you got to stay up all night. Those are the kinds of things that you need to do so when you get into business, you're not blown away by the fact that, what do you mean? It's 5 o'clock, I need to go. Yeah, but we have a newspaper to put out. But I'm tired. I don't want to do this, you know? So I would absolutely recommend college, and like I said, English degree is important, but if you want to be technical behind the camera, I would say go to a school that's maybe built for that. Honestly, I don't want to say anything out of turn. ICB is good in a way. I think the people that have come out of ICB had more passion than they did skill. They were really good at what they did because of who they were, not necessarily what the school taught them, because there's a lot of kids that go to that school that don't have a clue. You know, that's just individual. So I would go to Wright State. I would go to any college that that has a good communications program.
How often do people recognize your voice when you're like at a store or something, like from the radio?
People will notice, but they don't say anything because they don't believe it's possible. And then, like 10 minutes later, they'll go, "I thought I knew," and they won't give me any clue at all. So it happens sometimes. My neighbor next door, I moved into a new place, and the woman knew me immediately, and it freaked me out. Which was she's like, "You're Sandy," and I'm like, "Oh, I listen to you all the time." "Oh God, you're a freak." But it happened, and it's still after 35 years. I was at home last night. I have a friend visiting from Germany, and a commercial came on Channel 7 that I had done, and I'm like, "That's me." And she's like, "Nuh-uh," and I'm arguing with her. I'm like, "Shut up and just listen to me for a second, and then I'll prove it later." So it's always fun, and it's always, you're in the mall, and you're looking at hundreds of people going, "You people don't know that's me." So it's a big ego boost. It really is. I mean, I tell people all the time, I work in a job where people tell you you're awesome every day. You know, that's kind of selfish. You know, you get into sales, nobody wants to talk to you. They say no to you all the time. Get out of my office. I don't. You have to have a poker face, and you have to have nerves of steel to be in sales. Me, I'm like, "Hi, like me. I want you to like me." That's what talent does. They want the attention, you know.
Do you have a mistake that you continue to make despite it annoying you?
I was threatened to be fired for not reading the weather right. That I couldn't fix reading the weather right, and my boss finally told me she was going to fire me if I didn't say it differently, and I said, "Okay, I'll work on it." I am not a great ad-libber. I used to be, but my brain, as I get older, my brain doesn't work as fast, and sometimes I stumble a lot, and I don't like to. I haven't said a lot right now because I'm real comfortable and I'm enjoying what I'm saying, but when I'm on the air, I say a lot, and that's not interesting. So it's hard. You just have to figure out what it is that you do wrong and work on it. You know, listen to yourself. Be your own worst critic. Most of us are anyway. What else from the guys I haven't heard from? The guys who don't care. The guys who are like watching the clock going, let's get the hell out of here. Who else?
Corey.
What's that?
Hasn't been asked.
All the questions have been asked.
Oh, okay.
Every question.
So,
Alex, ask the question.
How late were you up last night working on election stuff?
2:30.
Oh my gosh.
Nice.
And it was fun. I went in at 9 in the morning, and I left there at 1:30 in the morning. So it was a 16-hour day, and it just flew by like that. It's fun. Were you there? You were there most of the night. The newsroom. You were there. Tell them about last night and how crazy it was and how out of control it feels. Tell them about the free food that you ate. What did you eat?
Whoa.
Probably should have gone.
That's elected media for you.
We had a buffet that was as big as this room, full of food for all these journalists.
Pretty much like I would get into what's it called? Where you get audio. It's the
Wire-Ready?
Yeah, Wire-Ready. So I would hit refresh every time and just look at what the new audio was, and then open it up in Audition, and then like cut up anything that I felt was newsworthy, and then I resave it into the Tuesday audio because yesterday was Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then and then you would just air it on your broadcast.
See, they're snickering because they think that what you said was funny, but in reality, what he said was very important because we look every day, we have audio that goes into the day's folder. And when you're going overnight to midnight to Wednesday, the question always is, where do I save it? Do I put it in Tuesday or Wednesday? And if you don't put it in Wednesday, they don't find it, they don't look in Tuesday, you're in trouble. I got an email this morning. Where was the stuff that was supposed to be in the Wednesday folder? So, so that's just between you and me. But it, we had 100 reporters there last night. We had people running around. The great part about coming down, and you guys all saw it, was having all the TV people there as well, and that really adds to a lot of it. And I told him, I said, come down. I said, this happens every 4 years. Don't miss it. You'll remember this for a long time. What else? Which one of you are going through the college application process?
Most of us.
Yeah, you seem like a leader. What is it that you want to do? Yeah, they're all, and that's awesome. I mean, you got to go boldly forward. You can't just sit like a mouse in your life. You've got to know where you want to go, but just don't be a jerk. That's all. What is it that you want to do?
I'm so mean to you guys all the time.
Are you like a floor director here, or what is your deal?
I don't know. It kind of depends on the day because I really like everything that has to do with this because I love editing a lot, but I also really like directing and I just like helping people. Mm-hmm. So if there's something that needs to be done, I like doing it just because it's fun.
What's your favorite part about this program?
Getting into stuff for free.
Getting into stuff for free. What were you going to say?
The Friday nights that I work on radio, I'm here till after 7, but it's a blast.
Cool.
Even when I have to deal with you all.
I kind of love just being with people who have some of the same interests and stuff because we spend way too much time together. Obviously, we have like 3 hours a day for 2 years, so we're kind of really a family, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
Media house.
Yeah. What about you? What did you start to say? I didn't hear you.
How you doing? Feel lucky to me again.
What's your favorite part of the?
I just like how we're learning before we're even going to college. Like, it's giving us a pretty good head start.
What about you?
I like it because of just like the atmosphere, and we're all kind of like this big family thing. And I mean, that's.
Spencer wants to make video games.
I think different reason, but I just like the atmosphere and how everybody just sort of helps each other and gets things done together and works as a team. And I think that's really important to when you're out there in the world, you need to be able to work with people.
Yeah, Absolutely. What about you? What do you like? You're not even
He
in the class?
graduated last year.
He's hiding back there. I'm like, I'm going to pull that guy out and find out. He doesn't even go to the school here. I'm like, that's great. That's great. Well, listen, you got a great teacher. Scott was passionate. I mean, this kid was were you 16 when you came down there? We never hire high school students because they're unreliable. They don't have transportation. You know, they're quiet, they're intimidated, they don't want to talk, they're not, you know, and so he come in there and I was like, whoa, here's a 16-year-old kid who is hungry and look at where he's at. That is his personality.
And has 3 different jobs.
Yeah, so whatever you do it with passion and make great connections with people, get to know people, and learn how to read and write. If you don't know yet, you've got 6 months before you're out of high school. But it's critically important because that will get you in the door. And then just remember, you're a servant. What can I do for you? That's what I tell my boss. What can I do for you today? And then he says, okay, this is what we need. And and then he tries to make my needs get done too. And it's a good relationship. So, does anybody else want to chime in before we wrap up this session?
Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
I do want to say that we've been in transition in the radio department, and these guys have observed a lot, but they didn't get a lot of hands-on. We're going to change that because now that we have a